Mr. Minner?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll say aye.
I, Jim Minner,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I have not directly
that I have not directly
or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value or promised any public office or employment as a reward to secure my appointment or confirmation thereof, so help me God. And now the oath.
I, Jim Minner,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Associate Judge of the State of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and of this state. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both.
Thank you both. Thank you.
In case everyone doesn't know, these two are residents of our fine city. And Cecil here stepped up and helped us on the River Oaks gas leasing group many years ago, and we needed help, among many other finer accomplishments, I'm sure. And Mr. Minner here, among many other fine accomplishments, is the nephew of R.R. Bob Minner, who served on this council for many, many, many years. And I understand is also an accomplished gold retriever or miner or whatever it was.
We have been lucky that way.
So, a man of
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
some distinction as well. Thank you to both of you.
If either one want copies, if you will contact me, I'll give them to you.
I'll come back.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both.
We'll move on to item number 10, which is to conduct a public hearing in order to receive citizen comments regarding adopting the Integrated Stormwater Management ISWIM program developed by North Central Texas Council of Governments, NICCOG, that addresses both stormwater quality and stormwater quantity and sets standards for planning, water quality, hydrology, hydraulics, site development controls, construction, and landscaping, together with the City of Fort Worth 2015 Stormwater Criteria Manual that became effective on September 29, 2015, as a resource guideline for locally adopted design criteria. This public hearing is open at 7:13. Mickey, kick it off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mickey Thomas with MJ Thomas Engineering. We've recommended to the city, I guess for years and years and years, the city's had the same old drainage ordinance, and I think we may have touched on this before. I know we've touched on it with the stormwater. The drainage ordinance the city has is kind of antiquated at this point, based on what's being used around the surrounding areas, before Fort Worth and Arlington, Denton, Sansom Park, all these smaller cities even. It's really not a comparable drainage ordinance, and it's now kind of antiquated. So most of the engineering firms out there have been forced to go over to the ISWIM manual that you see before you, the volume of pages. And it's what the adjacent cities next to the city of River Oaks is using as well. And so I think it would be, going to this ordinance will not only help the city by outlining criterion on which drainage systems are to be evaluated, but putting everybody kind of on an equal ground all the way around. So as you move forward, we've got constant intensities, we've got constant runoff factors, constant time of concentration. Where easements are needed, it defines where the easements are, what they should be done. It also outlines if you have detention ponds on private sites, to have developers go into maintenance agreements that they're maintaining it, not the city of River Oaks, because y'all don't necessarily need anything else to maintain. It's a very elaborate ordinance, but it does cover all the aspects of the drainage, from SES method, rational method, modified rational, talks about how to design the detention ponds, how storm conveyance is done, road drainage is done, and it's a very comprehensive manual, along with the city of Fort Worth, adoptions that they have in 2015. I think it'd be a great manual for the city of River Oaks to entertain, adopting and becoming your ordinance. I think it also, it gives you a little bit of benefit within Chicago as well. So that'd be my recommendation that we go to this ordinance as a new city drainage ordinance. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
You said Central Park has adopted that too, but they haven't done anything.
They haven't done anything, but, yeah, I mean, it's just, all the cities around here have gone to the ISWIM manual. Some of them, and I am seeing a little bit of a change coming on in the foreground here. The Chicago based their intensities for the drainage runoffs, everything has been based off of NCT-COG stuff that's in that book. And I am seeing that some of the cities are starting, and TxDOT have started kind of progressing over to what's called Atlas 14, which is more of a universal rainfall intensity type method. But the ISWIM is still part of that, and as that comes around and starts getting more frequent, we'll probably move over to the Atlas 14 intensities as well. It'll probably be my recommendation, so that way we kind of stay the same as the other cities around here. So, you know, if I go in and say, you know, we've got 200 CFS coming into it, they don't have to come back in and reevaluate their system based on what they've got going on. So it'll correlate way better than what we currently have. Right now, you're operating off a technical paper 40 that was written, gosh knows when, in the 30s or 40s. I don't remember it. It's been around a long time, and that's what we used to go off of. But a lot of things have changed, and like I said, it's a great ordinance. It kind of tells you all the ins and outs of all the drainage systems. So I highly recommend it. I bought it, you know, 15 years ago when it was introduced, or 16 years ago when it was introduced in the city of Fort Worth. First time I ran across it in 2006. And it was just because it was complicated and I wasn't familiar with it, but since then I've had plenty of time to get used to it.
You've been through all of that.
I'm not gonna say we've read every sheet in it, but we've utilized a bunch of it. So
Marvin, he mentioned retention pond. How does that affect our issue with the retention pond?
That's how we designed it,
Okay.
the one that's down there.
Yeah. No, I know that's how we designed it, but he's saying it wouldn't be our responsibility to maintain it.
With the maintenance agreement, I think on that one, I think the city will be maintaining that one, as my understanding.
Yeah, that one's set up different.
Yeah, anything in the future that goes through there, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're trying to push this forward, is we don't want the city having to invest time, resources, and money into maintaining something that's not theirs and should be somebody else's responsibility to do. I mean, that's really not what the city's in business to do. So we want to make sure when we go through and we do this thing, like, if they have one, it gives them an outline of the stuff that they need to do. I've provided Gordon copies of some samples of some maintenance agreements for that, some encroachment agreement type stuff to help get the city out of that business, so.
I've actually got those. And one thing about this is, COG, if you go a step further to get tiered, there's some additional benefits to being under ISWIM. And one of them is reduction of household insurance, which is an incentive, I'm sure, to everybody. But once you have that, it's much like the fire rating. The better fire rating you have, the better your insurance rate nationwide is. So there's a lot, I'll put those benefits in there for everybody to see them, but there are some added benefits. And I do plan to work with COG and you on that, so.
You know, not to get too far off track, but since you mentioned that, Chief Shelley, do we have an expectation for when our next ISO review will be that we would get credit for having a full-time department?
We have not scheduled it yet, but it's time to start working that way, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Getting on their agenda can sometimes be the challenge as well, getting them out here.
And the other thing it does is it makes the developers, like I said, accountable so that we know what we're doing. So, like Fort Worth, if you disturb anything under an acre, then you don't have to go through the ISWIM process. So it kind of protects the smaller guys with the smaller lots that, you know, really don't have room to do anything. But if you're developing an acre more, you have to submit that ISWIM for the city to be able to review that and approve